Mitt Romney sweeps Michigan and Arizona. Can the Massachusetts governor seal the deal on Super Tuesday? I'm Alan Barton. Stand by for a front page election update. Here with us to break down the latest developments in the race for the Republican nomination is Tina Korbe, associate editor at hotair.com. Tina, great to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, what do you think? What does Romney's sweep this week mean for him heading into Super Tuesday next week?
It's definitely not bad news, even though I did kind of buy the Santorum spin that the fact that Romney had to fight so fiercely for Michigan does weaken him a little bit going into Super Tuesday, just strictly from a dollar standpoint, or even just the fact that he had to spend so much time in Michigan that he could have been spending in other Super Tuesday states. But in the end, he did pull off a win, and he still does have the best campaign organization, the most money at his disposal, and he's already polling better nationally than he was a week ago. He's closing in on Santorum in Ohio, which obviously is going to be the really crucial state on Super Tuesday. If he wins that, I really have a hard time seeing how anybody else could be the GOP nominee.
So we saw Santorum, who coming off of those sort of beauty contests in the weeks before Michigan and Arizona, he got a big swing from that. And then he got sort of pulled off message. He got into talking about all of the contraception issue. He got into sort of I think what Krauthammer calls his austere social views. And what do you think? Did you think that that ended up hurting him in those elections? And do you think that talking about social issues is a continued good strategy for Mr. Santorum?
I'm a little torn on whether I think it helped or hurt him. It seemed to coincide, the increase in the discussion of social issues seemed to coincide with his slip in Michigan and Arizona, and it did seem to sort of open the way for Romney too. But on the other hand, I sort of think that a lack of willingness to engage on these issues wouldn't play well for him either, because he is known as a social conservative. So I think the bigger issue is that he needs to figure out how to engage, that it's not a problem to talk about these issues, but he just needs to really narrow down his message. And it's like Ann Coulter wrote in her most recent column, it's not his positions that are the problem, it's the way that he goes about defending them. And particularly on the contraception mandate, I feel like Obama really handed Santorum an issue that he could have driven home in a way that would have resonated well with all voters if he would have stayed really focused on the religious freedom aspect of that issue instead of, like you said, getting pulled into a discussion of contraception itself. So I think social issues could be a strength for him. They're issues people feel really strongly about, although obviously people continue to say the economy is the most important issue. But if he makes the case for it in an economic sense, which I do think social and economic issues are two sides of the same coin, or most importantly in a freedom sense, it could work for him, but he just hasn't done that.
Well, what do you think about what's going on within the Republican Party itself? Because at the New York Times, David Brooks suggests that it's the so-called wingers, the grassroots conservatives, Tea Party, et cetera, that are to blame for this so-called dysfunction within the GOP this year. Do you think that this sort of ongoing debate, the restructuring of how the primaries are awarding delegates, do you think it's good for the party because you really get to have it out on these issues? No one became the front runner really so soon that they wrapped it up delegate-wise. And in a way, you get to have all of these arguments before Obama's going to unleash his fusillade of arguments on whoever wins. Do you think it's been a good process, or it's been one that, in the end, has been just sort of negative for the Republican Party and is going to end up with a weakened candidate?
I'm definitely in the camp that thinks that all of the vetting can only be good in the long run. I'm starting, my confidence in that view is starting to be shaken a little bit, mostly because you saw Romney lose his polish so much in the Michigan race with all of his various populist blind spot kind of comments, and that just made him sound so out of touch with the average American. But in general, I still think that the long primary process is a benefit. I definitely don't think that the grassroots are to blame for whatever function exists in the GOP. Santorum made the point this morning that a conservative stands a better chance of beating Obama than a moderate because we have to offer a real contrast to Obama's vision for the country. And I was writing this morning on hotair.com that I agree with Santorum that in the end, whoever becomes the GOP nominee really does need to run as a conservative. We've seen all of the candidates, Romney, Gingrich, Santorum, Paul, move to the right during this primary process. And I know the instinct will be to move back to the center in the general election. But I think there's something to be said for really standing on principle and giving Americans a real choice in November. And hopefully this primary process is enabling all of the candidates to really hone their message as to why a conservative option is going to be better for the economy in the long run than Obama's top-down approach to everything.
All right, now cards on the table. What do you think? What are your predictions for next Super Tuesday?
I do think Romney's going to come out, like I said, the clear front runner from Super Tuesday. I haven't decided what I think, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think we'll see him come closer and closer and closer to Santorum in the polls and eventually pull out a win in Ohio. You'll see Santorum take a couple of states. My home state of Oklahoma, I think, is pretty solidly in his camp. I think Gingrich will win Georgia, just like he's banking on. And really, that's not anything to make light of. Georgia has 76 delegates up for grabs, and maybe we'll see Gingrich coming out as the new alternative to Romney again, or the renewed alternative to Romney. But in the end, I really do think it will just solidify Romney's position as the presumed frontrunner and ultimately the nominee.
All right, Tina, thanks so much for giving us your insight today. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, you can follow Tina over at hotair.com. And now I want to bring in the live panel. Joining me in studio, Terry Jones, Associate Editor for Investors Business Daily. Yaron, Brook, President of the Ayn Rand Center for Individual Rights. All right, gentlemen, your predictions. What do you think is going on here? Terry, I'll start with you. Romney sort of stumbles out of Michigan. I mean, Arizona was definitive, and Michigan, he sort of stumbled out, and then apparently even yesterday, the Republican Party was like, 16-14. No one knows why it's 16-14, not 15-15, but 16 for Romney.
Yeah, he's having trouble putting away the competition, that's for sure. But I agree with Tina. I think it's actually on the whole good. I think it will be good for him to be battle tested, to have all of his positions and all of his background vetted and kicked around in public.
All those Cadillacs.
All of his
wives' Cadillacs.
And he's going to have to come up with a better response than my wife drives a couple of Cadillacs.
And he didn't have to say it, too. No. He goes, my wife drives a Cadillac. A couple of them, actually. Yeah. He added that little clause.
Yeah. Well, he's helping to stimulate the economy. I don't understand why you guys are so against this.
We know that Yaron is rooting for just a lockdown convention, just a convention mess, right? Because
I mean, in a sense, I am, because I think this field is awful. I think they all lose to Obama, unfortunately. I think Santorum gets clobbered by Obama if he's the nominee, and I think justifiably so, if I can say that on PJ TV. I would almost root
on the internet.
On the internet, yes. Yeah. But on PJ, I don't know. I think Romney has a shot at Obama, but it's going to be, if he can't explain two Cadillacs, if he can't explain what private equity does, then he's going to have a hard time beating Obama. So I think this is, I've always said on the show and elsewhere, these are the third string candidates. We're not even seeing first string, or certainly not even second string Republican candidates. It's a shame. This was the elections where the Republicans could have really, moved an agenda, a pro-freedom, pro-free market agenda forward, could have crushed Obama. This was a great opportunity to just demolish the left, and I think they're blowing it. I don't think it's going to go to Brook convention. Romney's going to have it sealed, I think, by the end of next Tuesday. I could talk more about why I hate Santorum, but
Nah, that's okay.
Everybody's
covered that ground. Any last thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I don't think he'll have it. I don't think he'll have it sewed up by the end of next Tuesday. Not by a long shot, but I think he'll be on his way. And all he has to do is eke out wins in the big states, which he seems capable of doing. And I think he'll be the nominee. But look, I disagree with Yaron on the challenge to Obama. I think Rick Santorum might have some problems against Obama, but I think either Gingrich or Romney would have a really good chance of beating Obama, especially if they make a good case. And I think this is one of the things that the primary season is for Romney, is for him to sharpen his message and learn how to make his case.
He's got to get down to a case of a principled case and not just an experiential case.
I agree with,
I'm a private businessman, and thus I agree
with
I hear him say that one more time.
If he can make the case, he wins.
A principled principled case.
question
If
is,
any
can
of
he?
them could make a principled
Principled case. Yeah.
Anyone with principles.
Well, and Gingrich.
I don't even care if they have principles. I just want them
Yeah.
to make the case.
You just
We
wanna make-
know he doesn't have principles.
Yeah.
Put that aside.
A principled case is secondary to being able to make
Yes.
a principled case.
Yeah, I mean, Gingrich did well when he stood on principle, when he had those debates in South Carolina, and he was very articulate and very passionate about some principles around freedom, around free markets, about how free markets are good for the poor and entitlements are not. And that's when he got the big boom. If Romney can pick up on those ideas, and he needs to be able to explain his own background, why private equity is a good thing, not just but a good thing, and essential to the U.S. economy. Yeah, I think they can beat Obama. I think Obama's beatable. The question is, can these guys do it, and can they make the right kind of articulate case in order to do it?
All right, guys, that's all the time we have today. For Tina, Yaron, and Terry, I'm Alan Barton. You've been watching Front Page.